Good morning and happy Wednesday. We're back with another episode of the Angler Grind podcast. I am your host, Haley Demers, and I'm really happy to be joined here today by a friend of the program who I briefly met back in May. She was connected to the program through a couple other folks, but I'm really excited today to have the owner and founder from Texas, Miss Kristen Seal. Hello.
Hi, nice to meet you, Haley.
Thank you for being on today. Thank you for coming all the way to Nebraska.
I'm so excited to be here and to have the cooler weather. I'm going to try to pack it up and bring it back to Texas with me.
What's happening in Texas right now for you?
A lot in Texas, besides being a single mom of a 5-year-old, which takes up much of my time. Kicking off my new company, I started that back in, I guess it was March when I officially started that, but unpacking still. We moved into a new house, so I have the very final stages of probably 10 boxes left to go to finish that. That's going to be a big win. And just, it's a new community for us, so getting involved there and starting a new life.
Right. Wow. Moving. I didn't know about that part.
Yes.
And I failed to mention in my intro, owner and founder of the Red Thread Group.
Yes.
Which we'll get into how you started that and all of the beautiful things that came with it. But I want to go back to where are you born and raised, and where you originally, what's your story?
Absolutely. I was born in Branson, Missouri.
Oh.
Lived in Hollister, Missouri, a small town next to Branson, of course, on Coon Creek Road. Grew up very much a gearhead, loving fast cars. My first car was a Fox Body Mustang. I still have it.
Oh, cool.
I just sold my 1954 Studebaker, which was a little bit heartbreaking, but it was time. It's a show car. And
you a lover of cars?
Lover of cars. Gearhead.
Cool.
Thought I'd be a mechanic. I just wanted to be going fast all the time as a teenager. First kiddo in my family to go to college.
Wow.
Did my undergrad at Missouri State and then went to Kansas City from there and ended up with a master's from Rockhurst University.
Wow.
That was growing up, very much a tomboy. Besides cars, I dreamed of the ranch life. I have pictures still that I drew as a small kiddo with my horses in the barn, and just living the ranch life was my ultimate goal as a child.
Yeah, why was that a dream of yours?
I think God put that in my heart from the very beginning. I was born with a love of horses. If I need to be recentered or brought back, I just have to smell a horse, which sounds crazy, but there's something very centering to me about the horse as an animal. And so I wanted to do something where I could be on a horse every day. And I thought, well, a ranch. And I've come to love cows as much as I love horses. I did... by the time I was I think I was 35 when I finally did buy my ranch in Kansas and made that dream come true. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm also a lover of horses. The only thing is my dad would never buy me one. We had horses at the feedlot when I was really young, and then they got rid of them. And I always told my dad, we got the perfect place. I know exactly what it would look like, but I won't say what he thought about horses because he's a farmer
I've met those
and
farmers.
A cattleman and just not a fan. So I never got my horse, but I had about every other species. So,
yes.
Wow. So you bought your first ranch. That's insane.
I did. And
by
learned
yourself.
how to rope.
Wow.
That had become a big deal. I look back now, slightly horrified, but still it was okay because I was brave enough to do it. I was driving a 5 Series BMW, and I pulled up to the roping barn in it and popped out and sat in the stands. And eventually the cowboys were like, someone had to come over and say, "Are you here for?" And I said, "I'm just here to learn how to rope."
Cool.
And I met a super great guy who became a great friend of mine, and I had been roping a bucket. That's how I was learning.
Wow.
And I had my horses at a hunter-jumper farm. I'd also learned hunter-jumper. I've since learned dressage as well. Anything that keeps me on a horse, I love. So yeah, I started out roping a bucket and eventually bought my first rope horse. I still have him. He's 29 years old.
Wow.
And eventually moved up to a trainer and learned to rope because I knew I was single at the time, and I knew that if I was going to have a ranch, at some point I was going to have to go rope one and probably doctor it or catch a stray calf, whatever it was going to be. I wanted to be prepared to do it. So learned to rope. I even took a couple vacations to Burwell, Nebraska, to the 1+1 ranch there, which I love those folks.
Cool.
And they taught me a ton.
Nebraska's big rodeo. Have you been there?
We did go to the rodeo. We did.
So
yeah.
my band played there this summer, like the last
No
4
way.
or 5 years.
The largest nighttime rodeo, I think, in Nebraska is what it says there at the rodeo.
It's pretty fun. We'll be
arena.
there Friday and Saturday this next
my
year
gosh.
if you're in Nebraska.
Oh, I love the Sandhills. You
Yeah.
all have a treasure.
They're beautiful.
In the state, yeah.
So you graduated from college. What came after college for you?
The only thing I knew was that you went to college, you got a job, you stayed at that job for your entire life, and you retired and hoped you didn't die within 5 or 10 years of retirement. So I didn't feel like there were a whole lot of options for me, and having no one in my family at that time. Now, I did have an uncle, and he became very paramount in my story and who I've become because he put me in really uncomfortable situations and taught me how to network. But that has now become one of the core pieces when I'm mentoring people. What he taught me, I'm passing along now too, and I'm very, very grateful for him. He's been one of the most influential people in my life. So I found Waddell and Reed in business since 1937. That sounded like a good, solid place to be. I was not a risk taker. And I started out as a fund accountant, making $21,000 a year.
Wow.
In 2001.
Wow.
And honestly, because I didn't know how it worked, I kept seeing things around me that didn't make sense. And I would question it and say, well, why don't we make it better? And people would say, oh, well, we just do it. We don't try. And so from the very beginning, I realized, this is different, and I'm different. I went on and got a job as a compliance examiner so I could travel, because being a kid on Coon Creek Road, we didn't take a lot of vacations. And over the, I think, 4.5 years, I went to every single state, including Hawaii and Alaska. Lots of selfies like this because you were always alone, but I hit as many spots as I could. And that's when my career changed, because being in compliance and working with the field of financial advisors, I thought, why are we going in and making it harder for them? Because if I understand this right, they're a major source of revenue for the company. So why would compliance make it harder on them? Why wouldn't we help them? So I came up with things like Office in a Box. So it had all of their files. When we set up a new office, why wouldn't we give them all the files rather than a compliance manual that said? And my manager was like, yeah, good luck. I mean, you can pitch it. I didn't know any better. And my uncle had made me go in and talk to executives at that point many times. So I didn't know. I should probably have some fear of them. And I walked into the EVP's office and said, why wouldn't you do this? And they remembered that. I don't know that they ever did Office in a Box, but they appreciated that. And I left and went to a competitive company. And when my old company decided to build something, a whole entire new division, brokerage division, they called me. They remembered. The executive said, where is Kristen Chandler? And the head of compliance had stayed my friend, and they called me, and I left compliance and went into the business, which was very rare to happen. And from there, anything that was hard or new was put on my plate. I was very blessed to move up quickly, become a senior vice president in my 30s, and the chief of staff to the president, who we haven't worked together now for 10 years. Also another phenomenal person in my life. And we talk almost daily still. He lives in Pittsburgh. He's since retired. He went on to work, run a division for Schwab. And because I became so much a part of his life, we have always stayed in touch. And post that, I eventually got burnt out. And it was strange to me, and it took me many years to figure out, why did that burn me out when it was things that I like to do. I love to build and do new things, and I don't want to do the same thing every single day. And it took me many years. I went on and worked in private equity, which was really eye-opening. We took a premium pet food brand to transaction, and that was when I was able to reflect back and realize that was my kind of breaking point to where I went, okay, this isn't fun anymore. And it was because I wasn't aligned with who I am. And that's something I love about the Engler program, and what drew me in to Tom is because he said we help them find their passion and who they are. And I just think that's so important for everything we do in life, is to find that first. Became a huge fan of Tom, and now he can't get rid of me. But that's what I reflected back on. It was because I was doing things their way and not in a way that was aligned with me.
I have a quick question, because you moved up the ladder so fast, all the way to chief of staff, at a different company. But what do you think it was that propelled you during that time to get to where you were?
Right. I never said no, which I don't recommend to people because that was hard. But I'd built a reputation for being someone who could be trusted. I could go in and take something really complex and break it down in a way where it was consumable by the group. And then the group knew I loved them. I would do anything for them. And as I moved up, I always took as many people with me as I could. I wouldn't do anything at any cost, so that cost me a lot of money over the years, and probably a lot of promotions, because that wasn't the way I wanted to operate. But the executives could trust me, so the sponsors of all the projects and the people coming to me. So as a chief of staff, I would learn a lot of things. And the gentleman I talked about, my former CEO, who's a good friend, would say, well, who told you that? I can't tell you that. And that's what makes me a good chief of staff, because I won't tell you that. But I know where the red flags are, where the fires are starting to burn. Let's get ahead of them. And so because I could build the trust, and I was outworking everyone, which was an impact on my health and my life. And so I think there's a balance there of, I wasn't trying to outwork them, but I did. And I'm also, I'm an empath. And so that helps you build, I think, your emotional intelligence and to navigate that. But I loved it. Chief of staff, no one had even heard of in Kansas City at the time. I had a mentor who was I've been so blessed with life-changing people, but he helped me. The company knew I was probably going to leave. The president came to me and said, how do we keep you? Yeah. And he said, work for me, create a job, and let's do this. So I presented my resume for 2 jobs in my lifetime. Everything else I created on my own and went to people and said, you need this. Here's what you need. And I handed it to them.
What do you think about yourself, Drew, made people want to hire you and desired that you worked for them for, you name it, I'll make it happen? What about you?
I really believe it's because people can trust me.
Yeah.
I think it was being able to build trust quickly. that made all the difference. I've always been my authentic self, and I've probably overshared more in my life and been vulnerable to talk about things. But yeah, building trust and being genuine. I built a network, and I had no idea what I was building at the time, and now it has saved my life. I haven't marketed my new business at all, and I've only probably reached out to half the people in my network to tell them what I'm doing, and I've got a nice, steady business going because I nurtured it, I cared for it, and I talk to people who've been out of a job for a year. They're these amazing talents, and I said, well, what about your network? And they never built a network, and I didn't know that was a thing. I just thought everybody did it. So a lot of this I fell into because I'm a rule follower, and I read it in a book. I'm an avid reader. I would have read 6 to 10 books a year throughout my 20s and 30s. I took it all to heart. Bury me at, Conference Room B or something, which is a take on Buried at Wound. I'll get it wrong, so I'm not even going to say it. But there are books that just really inspired me, and people, Simon Sinek and Lencioni and others, that really played a key part in who I became.
Absolutely. Well, you speak about vulnerability and trust, and in the time that I've met you, I can definitely see that why you would say trust and vulnerability. It speaks loudly. So you mentioned that you were working and you noticed that it just wasn't your passion. You were building for other people. And you maybe, I don't know if this is true, but maybe lost who you were in that process a little bit. Let's kind of talk about that story and that transition in life for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent so much time trying to make sure my job wasn't my identity. And then when I got married late in life and moved to Texas, and I didn't have my job anymore, it was a gut punch. It was a wake-up call. My identity was wrapped up a lot in who I was and what I was doing, and my self-esteem, having that constant paycheck coming in. So it took some time. It was also in the middle of having a baby, going through a little bit of chaos with the private equity job, tying that piece off. And then I lost, he was 29, so I hate to say little boy, but to me it was a little boy. I had babysat and nannied him since he was 2. And he was killed in a car accident a month after my daughter was born. And so I had to go back to Kansas City for mediation with a 1-month-old and attend a funeral a week later for someone who was just an incredible light in this world, wonderful young man. I had just spoken to him, a month before about some job things and stuff he was going through. And so it was a lot, and it was really difficult after that. And I've forgotten your original question, but if we'll
That's
follow
right.
that
That's okay.
red thread group, that's all about, the red symbolizes love, and the thread is to pull this thread. So if we pull this thread through, I was going through all of that, and I'd given up, of course, sold my ranch in Kansas, which was my peaceful place. It was, I wish I could give you words on what it meant to, I would write almost every day after work, and then go to the fridge in the barn, forgive me, but I would crack open a beer and sit there and watch the sunset over the pond. And it was just everything I'd wanted. I got to what we called the KC Ranch, and it was amazing. But I'd given all of that up. And so the loss at that time was extreme. And then you have a child, so you know what sleep deprivation also does to you. So it was a tough few years. And when my daughter was 2, I was called by a good friend in Nashville. He had been asked by a group of private equity and VC guys to spin up a premium pet food brand. It was just an idea, so it was so cool to come in as a second person behind him, and we hired 2 other amazing folks and took that idea all the way through the process to being on shelf.
Wow.
Which was phenomenal. It was a lot of work. And during that time, I faced another challenge, and that was I started going blind. And we couldn't figure out why. I was losing bits and pieces of my vision. In fact, for 6 months, I never even saw my child's full face because it blocked out. If you ever have had a migraine with an aura, the aura pops up and you lose vision in that path. So I hadn't seen my kid's face in 6 months because of it. They figured out I had a very rare type of brain tumor on my pituitary, which was pressing on that ocular nerve there, optic nerve. I may have said that wrong. But it was, that pressure on it was causing the symptoms. And so fast forward several months, I get it removed and was told, oh, you'll be okay, you'll take hormones the rest of your life. But what really happened when I got out of there was they said, do you see these pills? You take these or you die. So I went from perfectly healthy, roping, doing anything I wanted, being fit, I lifted heavy weights, to, wow, I die. And it was a lot emotionally to think, should I die? Was that God's intention? Did I get that because my time and now I'm doing something? No, maybe it's just there's technology to keep me alive and that's the blessing in this. And so that piece of it was a little bit tough as well. And then, of course, it's just coming back from it. I gained 50 pounds before someone was able to help me. I went through a number of endocrinologists. I didn't give up, though. I knew there had to be a way that if I got the right inputs, I can go back. I don't really want to say go back, but get to this new version of me that is the healthy me that can ride the horses, and I can go back and rope and live on a ranch by myself if I need to. Now, I have a medical bracelet. Everything's different. You know, my 5-year-old knows if we're in an accident, you need to tell them that mommy has a bracelet. And she tells people, anyone in the grocery store that'll listen to her, that her mom had brain surgery and she's got this bracelet and that's what this means. And so it's just it became a whole different way of living and a new perspective. And then shortly after that, unfortunately, I also went through a divorce, which took its toll. It was a difficult time. My kiddo and I ended up in a town 4 hours away I'd never even been to in Texas and started over life. And that gets us to where we are today. And I went through a process. I joined this amazing group called Normal 40 on LinkedIn, led by a guy named Lon Stroshine, who wrote a book called The Trade. And it's about when you get to this time in your life, and it's usually in your 40s, although we're finding it's happening to people a lot younger, where you go, is this all there is? This was supposed to make me happy, and this isn't doing that. And he wrote this phenomenal book, and it's about trading that in and owning the second part of your life and doing what you need to do. And so through that community, met a ton of amazing people. And he challenged us to, what does freedom look like? What is it? And thanks to ChatGPT's help, ChatGPT and I went through all of that and figured out what does freedom look like. And what was important to me is I have to be present as a mom, and I'm going to take my kid to school, and I'm going to pick her up. And so when it came time, I needed a job. It was time to rebuild post-divorce, and I couldn't hit the apply now button. I couldn't stomach driving to Fort Worth or Dallas every day to work. And I said, okay, you have to do it. You have to start your own company. And I had a lot of imposter syndrome to overcome. And every day I look back and go, well, you built and helped build an entire brokerage division at a firm. I helped launch an international division for the same firm. I built things. Even if you go back to my car show days with my grandpa at the Studebaker shows, I would go and get old parts off of Studebakers down in the woods that we had, chrome and things, and I would sell them at the Studebaker meet so I could buy stickers. So I was like, I have probably always been an entrepreneur, but I didn't know it. Yeah. And here we are today, and the business is working. I have this new thing called a portfolio career, which I love. I love that I get to work with different companies doing different things. I'm a private operating partner, so I like to come in as the very quiet right hand. My focus seems to be, I keep getting in rooms with family offices and founder-led businesses, so I'm kind of in that space right now. I don't know that I'd want to go back to a big organization where things move so slow. I like the agility of the smaller companies, and people keep saying you need a niche. I don't have a niche. I want to help them across the board, personal and business, whatever they need. And one of the key values of hiring me is my network, and that you already have pre-vetted, good, trusted people that I can bring in that can do any type of work. And I love it. I'm as happy now as I've been maybe my whole life.
Wow. You've had a lot happen in the last, I want to say 10 years, but almost like 5.
I put a lot in a small amount of time. I did.
That is a beautiful, scary, hard journey. Thank you for sharing, first off. Will you, before we end this week's podcast, will you share a little bit about what the Red Thread Group is? Sure. And what it is that you do?
Sure. I touched on it a little bit, but it's changing what I do. And that's okay, right? What we set out to do likely morphs into something else. And I'm trying to follow, I call it following the energy. What feels good? What's staying aligned? Everything's very broad right now. It's starting to fall into place. I am on an advisory board now for a phenomenal company in Texas. I have 2 more advisory board positions that may come my way, one this week and another one that I've just signed an NDA for. So that's interesting. That's a different approach. So right now, Red Thread Group is probably a little too broad. It's going and doing a lot of things. My biggest client, I'm fundraising and doing business development for. I've never done that formally in my life. Now, we raised over $15 million in the startup, and so I've been in the rooms, and I get it, but I haven't been the one with the pitch deck going out and talking to folks in my network, but I've managed to send them a really great client, potential client, and then I've been a part of helping them find investors for a beef processing plant and a really cool adaptive reuse boutique hotel in South Dakota is the latest one. I'm finding myself in rooms with some VC people. So I'm just, that's the red thread. I had no idea how symbolic that would be, but I'm following them. I'm pulling on the threads. So I can't tell you for sure in a year when I come back to see you, or maybe in the spring and we do this again. It's going to be amazing how different it is. But I ask every week, God, universe, lead my steps. just lead my steps. I've had to learn the art of surrender and the art of acceptance through all of this. I'm type A. I want to follow the rules. I want to help God out every chance I get. And I've learned you just can't, because I had to be knocked all the way down where I couldn't go on. I had to surrender, and that has changed everything in my life.
When did you learn that? Is that recent, within the last 5 years, 10 years, or? Post
brain surgery and mid-divorce, realizing it's too much. And if I keep trying, I'll die. And that death is not an option with a kiddo to raise. So I just kept going. I learned how to take the next best step. I loved having years planned out. It took me 6 months to buy a truck because I wanted to make sure. And I had to stop. There was no way to survive and go on. And so I hope I can help others not get to the point of you survive or you surrender. Or if you want to survive, you have to surrender. I don't want people to get to that point. But it took that for me. And I gave it up, and it was amazing what started shifting.
Wow. Well, this has been absolutely so wonderful. I didn't know, anything about your story coming into this, or the experiences and the things that you've done. But all I can say is, wow.
Thank you.
I know leaving this room today, this will never be our last conversation. No. And I'm just so thankful that you were willing to share your journey, the highs, the lows, the hard things, and some of the really beautiful things as well. So thank you for joining. You're and so can't wait to hear more about what lessons and advice you have for our entrepreneurs listening next week.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you.